In today's video, we're going to be going over how to dial in the perfect lead vocals for your mix. Now, the thing with lead vocals is that they can be a bit tricky because they are mostly the star of the show in every mix. It's not like the background vocals where you can just, treat them, lightly or treat them heavily and then tuck them back in the mix. The lead vocals need to come out, they need to shine, they need to be perfect. So it kind of gets tricky, but in this video, I'm going to go over how to get in perfect lead vocals for your mix every time. So I'm going to be using a song that I used in the last video where I kind of went over the chain, but I just, rushed over it. But in this video, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the vocal chain where we kind of go through all of the processes and, every decision that I made and how I approached at the final result. So without further ado, let's dive into the DAW. So here in Cubase, you can see I'm in the lead folder where I have the lead and as well as the doubles. So we're just going to start with a clean slate and try to build up everything from scratch. So I've gone ahead to take off all of the processing and then we'll just build everything from scratch, right? I'll introduce all of the processing one after the other and kind of go over my thought process and how I approached the mix. So yeah, first off, let's have a feel for what the lead vocal is doing.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling, what is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. My darling, telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling, what is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. My darling.
So I went ahead to do triple takes of the lead vocals and I had one panned dead center and then I have the other two panned hard left and hard right. So let's see what that sounds like.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling.
So another thing I did was I went ahead to turn down the level of the panned vocals because I just want it to be tucked back in the mix. I don't want it to be super loud in the mix, right? So if we have it at unity where the main lead vocals are, they would sound more like this.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling.
You can have that. You can absolutely have that. For me, I decided to turn it down in this case. It's a stylistic decision. It's not, there are no hard and fast rules, really. It's just whatever you feel like or whatever feels right to you. So I had them turned down, just to give the main vocal just an edge or just like width on the sides. So it's more or less going to be something you feel instead of something you hear within the mix.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling, what is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. My darling.
After recording these doubles, I went ahead and did some harmonies and then did more doubles here to just kind of like give a little bit more flesh and life to what is being sung here. So let's hear those harmonies and the other doubles.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling, what is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. My darling.
And for these guys, I have them turned down by -8 dB. And then I have this panned hard left, hard right, and as well 50% both left and right. So it gives us that stereo width. It gives us that fullness in the stereo field.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling.
So everything is wide, but then the main lead vocal is still up front and center. And that's, really what you want to be sure of or you want to make sure of at every point in time when you're mixing. Make sure that the main lead vocal is front and center all of the time. And other vocals are just surrounding it and, just complementing it. And that's really what you want to do. As far as processing goes, on the individual channels themselves, all I have is auto-tune. And I've gone for quite a high retune speed. I have it up to 5, so it's going to be really high. But then I've also gone ahead to soften the impact with this flex tune so that we don't get that very, very robotic sound. And then I'm turning up the humanize to 50, as well as, setting the key and scale. We all know this is very essential for your auto-tune plugin to work correctly. So I did the tuning on the other doubles as well, but for the doubles I went a bit harder on the, no, not exactly harder, I just dialed back the flex tune a little bit so that I can get more of that tuned sound. And since they are going to be talked back in the mix anyway, you're not going to really hear it, but I just wanted to make sure that the doubles are perfectly in tune, even though they are going to be, just away in the background, so that they don't kind of, some persons might still pick up on those, little things. And everything just needs to be perfect. And that's just why I'm making sure that those vocals are really tuned. So I don't really care if they sound very robotic or not. The most important thing is I'm getting the sound that I want from them, and then I'm tucking them, back in the mix. Right. And for these other harmonies, I don't have any processing on them. So I'm feeding these lead vocals into the lead verse bus, as I've named it, and then feeding these other guys into the lead doubles bus. So we'll just go there and see what exactly is happening there. So on the lead verse, let me turn this off for the meantime. What I have is some EQ on the channel strip, and I'm doing a high pass up to about 120 hertz. And then I'm also notching out some frequencies where the vocals were resonating just a little bit. I'm just taking them out a little bit. I'm trying to, the reason I'm doing this and the reason you want to do this is so that you balance out the frequency information before feeding it into your compressor, right? So you have to make sure that your frequency distribution is balanced a little bit so that when the compressor is acting on the source material, it's acting evenly across board and not reacting based on one particular frequency range that's way too loud. And then the first thing I'm introducing is the CLA 76 compressor, and I'm doing a moderately fast attack and a fast release.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you, my darling.
So if you watch really closely on the needle, you find out that the needle is only going like to the extreme towards 5. We're only getting about 5 dB of gain reduction when I'm hitting those higher notes. Telling me what I... So there's a tendency to want to sing louder when you are singing higher notes. And that's, those peaks are what I'm just targeting. And that's what the compressor is catching. And that's why I have it at a moderately fast attack.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you.
Other than that, you can see the needle is just dancing around here. We're just getting about maybe 1 to 2 dB of gain reduction. But on those louder notes, we're getting up to 3 and 5 dB of gain reduction. And this helps, balance out the dynamic range. So I'm feeding that into the LA2A.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling, what is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like a...
So you can see now, because the CLA 76, the first compressor that we introduced, has reduced the dynamic range a bit. This one is not working quite as hard. You can see we're averaging on 2 dB of gain reduction, but then on the more louder section, we're getting up to 3 dB of gain reduction. Unlike the first time when we were having 1 dB of gain reduction on the average, but then on the louder notes, we were getting up to 5 dB of gain reduction. So, but then for this one, the difference is just about 1 dB. So the vocal is now sounding a little bit more consistent.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling.
And it still sounds upfront. It still sounds like the star of the show that it's supposed to be. And that's really what you want to be sure of at every point in time. So the idea behind using these two compressors is, this is a very, very classic move in the audio world, in the audio engineering world, where we start off with a very fast compressor and then we feed the output into the input of a slower compressor, a more optical compressor. And typically this one is used to target the peaks, those really high peaks, and just bring them down, try to control those peaks so that they don't get out of control. And then we feed that into the optical compressor. This one is more of a slower attack and a frequency dependent release. So it depends on the source material. You don't get to decide how fast or how slow your attack and your release times are on this second compressor right here. But then it works almost 90% of the time on vocals. But then you don't want to feed vocals that have really spiky transients into this guy. Because it has a slow attack, it's really not going to respond well. So you want to first control your peaks with the FET style compressor or the faster compressor. And then when you have a more even sounding vocal or material, then you feed it into the LA2A compressor to get an even more stable vocal. So yeah, after that, we are doing EQ with the SSL channel strip, the EV2 by Waves. So for this one,
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you.
I'm just introducing some shine and some sparkle to the vocals around 14K thereabouts. And I've turned it up to the point where it's sounding a little bit more present and it's sounding airy. And then I'm taking away from this mid-range. This tends to sound quite nasally, you know, this 700 to 900, sometimes 1K, 1.1K, depending on the singer, depending on their texture. This range tends to sound very nasally. So I'm just dipping it out by 1.3 dB here. And then also on the low mids, around 300, where you get a lot of mod, a lot of boomy sound, especially on vocals. I'm taking out about 3.6 dB on that one. And then for the lows, which we don't really need, you know, a lot of information on the lows for vocals, especially around 90, 95, I'm taking out about 9 dB. But then again, you have to make sure that you are not cutting into the fundamentals of the vocal. That's why I have it at 95. I'm not cutting way high into like the hundreds, the 120s, the 150s, because that's where you tend to have the fundamentals of the vocals, the body sits in that region. But then anything lower than that, you don't really need in a vocal. So that's why I have it at 95 and I'm taking away about 9 dB with a shelf. And with that, it sounds like this.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling.
So if we take off all of the processing that we've done so far on the lead vocals, let's hear how that sounds, how we are sounding so far.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you.
Let me just solo it for purposes of this tutorial. Usually I'll do all of this within, you know, the entire mix. But for the sake of this tutorial, let me just solo that and see what we have.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you.
And with?
My darling, what is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. My darling.
You hear how the vocals come alive. You hear how they sound a little bit more expensive. You hear how they, you know, they shine. And that's really what you want. You want to take away the mod. You want to take away everything that's going to potentially cause problems within the mix, and then elevate the things that are pleasing or that are going to be pleasing within the mix or within the vocal or whatever it is that you're trying to mix or you're trying to work on. That's basically it. Because mixing is just about balancing. You remove some of the things you don't like. You add some of the things that you like. Not necessarily like, but things that are going to benefit the song or the source material that you're working on. So after that, I'm just adding subtle saturation. I'm introducing saturation to the mid-range, you know, just to beef it up a little bit. From about 300 Hertz, I have a boost here, and then just another one here for presence, and then this one for body.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you.
If I take it out,
my darling, what is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku.
Hear how the vocals just became fuller. Now let's listen to it within the context of the entire mix.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling.
And off.
What is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. My darling. Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling, what is it that they told you?
You can immediately hear how the vocals come to life, how they sound, really shiny, and they already sound finished. They sound mixed, and the only thing you need to do from there on is just to throw on your effects, because there isn't really much to do on it anymore. If you start going further with a lot of processing, you find out that you might just be doing more harm than good to your source material. So for me personally, when I got to this stage, I just realized that I had gotten the sound that I wanted. Anything after this would just be to glue the sound if necessary, maybe bus compression or something of that nature. So now let's go into the harmonies and the other doubles.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling.
Right, so for this, I have, similar approach. I'm using the FET compressor here, fairly fast attack, but then a fast release just to capture the peaks, and then feeding that into the LA2A.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling.
So we're getting an average of 1 dB to 1.5 dB of gain reduction, just controlling all of those dynamics and making sure that, everything stays in check.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you.
So as soon as I was happy with where they were sitting, then I went on to try to sculpt the sound.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you.
So starting from the top with the EQ, you can see I have gone ahead to darken the sound a little bit. I'm taking away almost 5 dB from 14K, almost 15K. And the reason for doing this is if you boost on the high end, you find out that your vocals become a little bit more present. And I don't want it to sound present, especially when there is a lead vocal singing along with them. You want to make sure that the lead vocal is the one shining and it's the one present. So what I've done is to just darken the sound a little bit by doing a high shelf cut up to about almost 5 dB. And then the next thing, I'm taking away some mid-range, again, still from that nasally region, that nasally range, 700, 800, 900, sometimes 1K. Really have to find the spot where it's most annoying, and then you dip a little bit, but then not so much that you remove the intelligibility of the vocals. And then for this one, I am boosting around 300, where I was taking away 300 from the lead vocal. Here, I'm just doing a little boost to give them body, to make them fuller within the mix. And then around 95 as well, I'm also doing some cuts.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling, what is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Olu.
And because these are group vocals, I went ahead to apply some more effects on them. So the first thing I'm doing is adding a chorus. After that, I'm trying to compress the entire sound, and then I'm putting a high pass to just make sure that all of the chorus and, compressing that the sound doesn't get very, very muddy. So I'll just try to, bypass each of these modules so that you can hear what each one is adding to the sound. Let me solo this for a minute so we can hear what we're doing.
Telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling.
Without the effects.
Telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling. Telling me how they be fooling you like Oluku.
So you see that chorus effect just makes it sound wider, and it makes it sound, a little bit more like there are just some extra persons singing along. That's really how you want to approach a chorus, unless you want to get a very artistic, very stylistic effect from it. So let me bypass this and let's hear just the chorus.
Telling me what you wanted me to give you.
And then with the compression.
My darling. Telling me how they be fooling you like Oluku.
And that's about it. And so I'm feeding the lead verse into the lead boss, as well as the lead doubles. I'm feeding that into the lead boss where I'm doing further processing. Okay, and within the lead bus, I just have saturation there. Again, I'm boosting the high end just to introduce some shine, and then I'm trying to bring in more body, more fullness to the entire lead bus, trying to make sure that they are present within the mix. So this is first without it, and then I'll turn it on halfway in.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling, what is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. My darling.
You can hear how the vocals just popped forward a little bit. Now let's hear it within the context of the entire thing.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling.
Off.
What is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. My darling. Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you. My darling, what is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. My darling.
So you see, mixing doesn't really have to be one very, very complicated thing. Just little steps, making sure that you are hearing what you are doing and whatever you are affecting is beneficial to the sound and to the mix overall. And really, that's just how you do it. And then now I'm feeding this lead bus into the Allvox bus. And this Allvox bus contains both the lead and all of the other harmonies in the entire BGV folder. I've had to disable all of these tracks because I bounced. You saw me muting and unmuting these guys because I had to bounce it because of my CPU. So, but then this is where all of the BGVs are, and all of them are going into their own dedicated buses, and then from those buses, they are going into the Allvox bus where they are being met with the lead bus or the lead vocals as well. So within that Allvox bus, what I'm doing is just Pro MB. And this is just to catch all of the low end, right? That's what I'm doing because of all the compression and everything, and all the different harmonies and everything have lower parts, right? They have low parts, they have high parts. So all of those low parts were crossing down into this region, and I wanted to make sure that I'm controlling them because I don't want rumble from the vocals to affect the other low frequency elements. So what I'm doing is to control with this one range right here on the Pro MB, and then I'm just raising that a little bit.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you.
Let me solo that range. So yeah, that's just it. Making sure that the low end of the vocals are not creating any kind of mod, or they're not competing with the low end instruments for space. And then after that, I'm just doing bus compression to kind of glue all of the sounds together and make sure that they are tight and they are one big cohesive unit. So what I'm doing is 30 milliseconds of attack time. This is so that all of the transients can pass through. And then I'm putting the release on auto because their vocals, they are not consistent. Sometimes they are singing shorter notes, sometimes they are singing longer notes. So you can't really decide whether you want to have them at 100 milliseconds of release or 300 or whatever. So I just left it to auto and then allowed the compressor to kind of like determine where is best to have the release. And then I'm going for a gentle ratio of 2:1.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you.
In the actual mix, I was getting more than this, amount of gain reduction. I was getting about 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction, and that's because I had all of the harmonies going into the Allvox bus. But now, because I've bounced it and they are just on their own right here, so the only thing that's being compressed right now is the lead vocals. But if all of the other harmonies had been in this bus, we'll be getting a little bit more gain reduction, maybe just up to 3 or 4 at the loudest, but I doubt I ever got to 4 dB of gain reduction. And that's really just it. Everything else was effects that I was adding. So let's go ahead and turn on the effects. So for this song, I'm sending the lead vocals just into the plate reverb, and that's because I have so many vocals in this mix, and I don't want to muddy up the vocals. I didn't want to muddy up the mix, I should say. I wanted the lead vocal to be up front, like I've said several times. I wanted it to be up front, but then the other harmonies now has to take all of the reverb and everything. So I'm just sending the lead to a plate reverb, and I'm adding just a tiny little bit. You can hear it if you listen closely, but within the context of the entire mix, it might seem imperceivable. But let's just listen and hear what it sounds like by itself, and then we'll listen to it in the context of the whole mix.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you, my darling.
The only other thing I'm doing is just adding a delay, a half note delay to the lead vox.
Telling me what you wanted me to give you.
And you can hear it in the background there. So it's just regular ping pong, half delay, nothing really fancy.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you, my darling. What is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku, my darling.
And for the plate reverb, I'm using the Valhalla room. But before I got into the reverb, you can see I've done a little bit of filtering here, where I'm taking out, a lot of the lows, some of the highs, and then I'm doing this notch around the high mids so that the reverb isn't sounding harsh. So for the reverb, I have it at 3.3 milliseconds of pre-delay. Is this a pre-delay? Yes. Oh God. Of pre-delay, I almost doubted what I did there. 3.3 milliseconds of pre-delay, and then 2.09 seconds of decay. And yeah, I have it on the large chamber.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you, my darling. What is it that they told you?
And then right after that, on the reverb channel, I'm just doing some sidechain compression, making sure that every time the vocal is singing, the reverb is, ducking out of the way of the vocals. And then right after the vocals are done singing, the reverb can now shine.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you, my darling.
So yeah, that's just it. Creating space for the vocals. Like I said, the vocal is the star of the show, the lead vocals. They are the star of the show every time, and you want to make sure that whatever you are doing benefits them largely. So you make sure that nothing is masking your vocals, and they are crisp and clean and clear within the mix. So now let's listen to everything we've done with the rest of the music.
Telling me what I owe you, telling me what you wanted me to give you, my darling. What is it that they told you? Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku. Telling me how they be fooling you like Onuku, my darling.
And that's about it. And that's the whole process. So yeah, if you found value in this video, if it really helped you, it would mean the world to me if you can just smash the like button. Also leave me a comment, and as well subscribe to the channel. Let's keep the channel growing. I would really appreciate it. Also turn on the notification bell so that you get notified and you don't get to miss any video that I drop. If you want to see how I process all of the, the rest of the vocals and the entire mix, I'm going to be leaving a video somewhere around here. I'm going to be leaving a video so you can go through all of that and see how I process the entire music from start to finish. Thank you, and I'll see you in that video.